Obi and Chuka nodded, trying to hide their disappointment. They left Nkechi's house after a short visit, knowing they hadn't learned much but still feeling that something was off. As they walked back to their own homes, Obi said, "Nkechi seemed nervous when we mentioned the crematorium. There's definitely something she's not telling us." Chuka agreed. "We need to find out more about these ancient rites mentioned in the notebook. Maybe someone in the village knows more about them." The next day, Obi and Chuka visited the village elder, Chief Okechukwu. He was known for his wisdom and knowledge about local traditions. They hoped he could shed some light on the strange symbols and rituals mentioned in the notebook. Chief Okechukwu welcomed them into his home, a large well-kept house with traditional artwork and carvings. They presented the notebook and asked him about the symbols and rituals. Chief Okechukwu examined the notebook carefully. His eyes grew serious as he recognized some of the symbols. "These symbols are from very old traditions," he said slowly. "They are associated with ancient rites that were practiced long ago. Some of these rites involve offerings and sacrifices." Obi and Chuka listened intently. "Is there a connection between these rites and the fat being sold at the crematorium?" Chuka asked. Chief Okechukwu nodded gravely. "Yes, there could be. Long ago people believed that certain offerings could bring power or protection. It's possible that the crematorium is involved in these old practices, which may be why Nkechi is buying the fat." Obi and Chuka were stunned. "But why would Nkechi be involved in such practices?" Obi asked. Chief Okechukwu shrugged. "I can't say for certain. You would need to investigate further. It's important to be careful as these practices are often shrouded in secrecy and can be dangerous." Armed with this new information, Obi and Chuka knew they had to dig deeper. They decided to return to the crematorium that night to see if they could find more clues about the ancient rites and how they were connected to Nkechi's fat. As night fell, they made their way to the crematorium once again, their hearts pounding with anticipation. What would they discover this time? The mystery was growing more complex, and they were determined to uncover the truth, no matter what dangers lay ahead. Obi and Chuka approached the crematorium under the cover of darkness, their footsteps muffled by the quiet night. The building loomed in the moonlight, casting eerie shadows on the ground. They had decided to stake out the crematorium to see if they could witness any unusual activity. They hid behind a large tree near the gate and waited. Hours passed, and just when they were starting to think they had made a mistake, they noticed a few figures approaching the building. The figures were cloaked in dark robes and carried small lanterns that flickered in the night. Obi and Chuka watched in silence as the robed figures entered the crematorium through a side door. The gate had been left slightly open, and they took the opportunity to slip inside quietly, staying close to the shadows. The interior of the crematorium was dimly lit by the lanterns, casting an orange glow on the walls. The robed figures gathered in the room they had previously explored, the one with the jars and bottles. They began to set up a large ceremonial table in the center of the room, placing strange items and symbols around it. Obi and Chuka crouched behind a stack of jars, trying to stay hidden and get a closer look. They could see that the robed figures were arranging the items with great care. In the center of the table they placed a large, decorated bowl and began to chant in a language Obi and Chuka didn't understand. As the chanting grew louder, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The robed figures moved with practiced precision, and the atmosphere became more intense. Obi noticed that they were placing some of the jars of fat on the table as part of the ceremony. Suddenly, one of the figures lifted a large jar and poured its contents into the bowl. The mixture bubbled and fumed, sending out a strange, sweet smell. The chanting grew even more fervent, and the robed figures seemed to be in a trance. Obi and Chuka exchanged worried glances. It was clear now that the crematorium was involved in some kind of ritual that used the fat as a key ingredient. But what was the purpose of these rituals, and how was Nkechi involved? As they continued to observe, they noticed Nkechi entering the room. She was not wearing a robe but carried a small, ornate box. The robed figures greeted her with nods and gestures, indicating that she was an important part of the ceremony. Nkechi handed the ornate box to the leader of the robed figures, who opened it to reveal a collection of strange, shimmering objects. The leader took one of the objects and placed it in the bowl along with the fat mixture. The mixture began to glow with an otherworldly light. Obi and Chuka were both fascinated and frightened. They had never seen anything like this before. They decided they needed to gather more information about these glowing objects and what they were for. As the ceremony continued, Obi and Chuka noticed that the robed figures were drawing symbols in the air with their hands, creating patterns that seemed to resonate with the glowing mixture in the bowl. The ceremony was reaching its climax, and the atmosphere was charged with energy. After a while, the robed figures began to chant more intensely, and the room seemed to vibrate with power. Obi and Chuka felt a sense of unease, realizing that they were witnessing something very significant and potentially dangerous. They knew they had to leave before they were discovered. As the ceremony ended and the robed figures began to disperse, Obi and Chuka quietly slipped out of the crematorium, their minds racing with questions. What was the purpose of the glowing objects and the mixture? How was Nkechi involved in these rituals? And what would they do next? The mystery was deepening, and they needed to find answers quickly. Obi and Chuka made their way back to the village, feeling a mix of fear and determination. The glowing mixture and the rituals they had witnessed at the crematorium were deeply troubling. They needed to find out more about the shimmering objects and how Nkechi was connected to these ancient practices. The next morning, Obi and Chuka met with Chief Okechukwu again. They were eager to share what they had seen and seek his guidance on how to proceed. Chief Okechukwu listened intently as they recounted their observations from the ceremony. "This is more serious than I thought," Chief Okechukwu said, his face growing solemn. "The glowing objects and the rituals you described are indeed part of very old practices. These ceremonies were meant to invoke supernatural powers and could be dangerous if misused." Obi frowned. But why would Nkechi be involved in something like this? What does she hope to achieve? Chief Okechukwu sighed. Sometimes people turn to ancient rites out of desperation or greed. Nkechi might be seeking power or protection. It's possible that she believes these rituals will change her situation or bring her wealth. Chuka nodded. "We need to understand more about these glowing objects. They seem to be a key part of the ceremony." Chief Okechukwu thought for a moment. "There is an old herbalist in the village, Neka. She knows a great deal about traditional items and their uses. She might be able to help you identify the objects and their purpose." Thanking Chief Okechukwu, Obi and Chuka went to visit Neka. They found her in her small herb-filled shop at the edge of the village. Neka was a wise, elderly woman with a gentle demeanor. Obi and Chuka showed her the samples they had taken from the crematorium, including a piece of the glowing object they had seen. Neka examined them carefully, her eyes widening as she recognized the item. "This is a rare and powerful substance," Neka said, holding up the glowing object. "It's called Imo Aji, and it's used in ancient rites to invoke certain energies. It is believed to bring either great power or great danger, depending on how it is used." Neka continued, "The rituals you witnessed are meant to harness these energies. If done correctly, they can indeed be very potent, but they also carry great risks. It is important to understand the full implications before getting involved." Obi and Chuka were alarmed. "What kind of risks are we talking about?" Chuka asked. Neka's expression grew grave. The misuse of imo-aji and similar substances can lead to harmful effects. It might attract malevolent spirits or create disturbances in the natural balance. If Nkechi is involved in such practices, she could be putting herself and others in great danger. Obi and Chuka realized they had to act quickly. They needed to find out more about Nkechi's plans, and how to stop her if necessary. They thanked Nika for her help and left her shop, their minds racing with the new information. That evening, they decided to confront Nkechi directly. They were determined to find out why she was involved in these dangerous rituals, and what she hoped to achieve. They approached Nkechi's home, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As they knocked on her door, they hoped they would finally get the answers they needed. Nkechi opened the door, surprise and concern showing on her face. "Oh, it's you two. What brings you here?" Obi took a deep breath and said, "Nkechi, we know about the rituals at the crematorium. We want to understand why you're involved in them and what you hope to achieve." Nkechi's expression changed to one of worry. "Please, come inside. I'll explain everything." As they entered her home, they prepared themselves for the truth that might be revealed. The mystery of the fat seller was about to take another twist, and they needed to be ready for whatever came next. Obi and Chuka sat down in Nkechi's modest living room. Nkechi closed the door and took a deep breath before speaking. She looked nervous but resolved, clearly knowing that her secret was about to be revealed. "I owe you an explanation," Nkechi began, her voice trembling slightly. "You've discovered something I've been trying to keep hidden for a long time. The truth is, I've been using the fat from the crematorium as part of a ritual that I believe will change my life." Chuka leaned forward. "Change your life? How?" Nkechi nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I grew up in poverty and have always struggled to make ends meet. One day, I heard about these ancient rituals and their power. I was desperate for a way to improve my situation, so I decided to participate in the ceremonies at the crematorium. I thought that if I could harness the power of the rituals, it might bring me wealth and a better life." Obi and Chuka listened intently. "And what about the glowing objects?" Obi asked. "What are they for?" Nkechi wiped her tears. "The glowing objects are meant to enhance the ritual's power. They are called imo-aji, and they are believed to amplify the energies being invoked. I was convinced that if I used them correctly, I could achieve my goals." Chuka frowned. "But Chief Okechukwu and Neka both warned us that these rituals are dangerous. They could bring harm instead of good." As Nkechi stood by the riverbank, her reflection flickering on the water's surface, she knew that the time for secrets was running out. The faint sound of drums echoed from the village, signaling the start of a mysterious ritual. Her heart pounded as she realized that the truth she had tried so hard to bury was about to be unearthed. Meanwhile, Obi and Chuka, now armed with more clues, were determined to confront Nkechi. They had pieced together enough to know that what lay ahead would change everything. But as they approached the village, a shadowy figure watched from the distance, knowing that the next move would be critical. The truth is closer than ever, but so is the danger. Will Obi and Chuka uncover the secret before it's too late? Or will Nkechi's world come crashing down? The mystery unfolds in Part 3, the final confrontation. Don't miss the next revelation. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell now. Share the suspense, like and share if you're ready for the truth to be revealed.